welcome to a Thursday edition of the First Things First podcast. I'm your host, Jenna Wolfe. Catch us Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern on FS1. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Tell us what you think and leave us a review. Time now to bring in Nick and the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. Let's head to the NBA. Kevin Durant is having a very strange week, and by strange, I mean he was caught tweeting negative things about his old team. This and several other off-season incidents have reportedly caused his teammates and team officials to be perplexed by the Finals MVP's off-season behavior. Nick, I ask you, should the Warriors be concerned about Durant yet?
I mean, when a guy says to the national public, I haven't eaten or slept in 2 days, I think you're going to be concerned. When a guy tells the world...
It's not like he got a bunch of fat stored up either.
Right.
Right.
He can't afford it.
Can't be hibernating.
Yeah, man, he could slip down the drain.
When KD tells the world that shortly after picking the Warriors, he had something of a panic attack, called his business manager, Rich Kleinman, and said, why did you let me bleep up my life? When Durant tells the world he has multiple ghost social media accounts to engage in it, not to engage in debates with like other players or established members of the media, but just random anonymous kids on the internet. When Kevin Durant is posting YouTube comments trying to be like, I'm Kevin Durant and I'm just like you.
Okay, well.
Which is what it was. Hey, I have acne and I drink beer and I play Xbox. He is grasping for something that, despite all of his success, despite the fact that if he never played another basketball game in his life, he's one of the 25 best to ever do it. Despite the fact that he's an MVP and now a Finals MVP and now a champion, there is something that is still eluding him. Yeah, that's concerning.
I could see why you would be concerned, but, you know, to me, he's still at, say, that critical juncture in his career and in his life. I don't want to, but I have to bring LeBron into this because LeBron, I've been a resident of South Florida for a long time. So when LeBron came to South Florida, and then also knowing LeBron and people close to him, that LeBron thought he was making the best decision. But he ended up having some regrets in going to Miami. Maybe the way the decision was depicted, that, and then also he became a villain. But he tried to embrace being a villain, and then after losing against Dallas, he realized, you know something? I'm not that guy. I'm going to go back to being the LeBron that I know. Like, I don't care if people hate me, but I'm not going to try to use that as fuel. And it turned him into the person that we have seen these last number of years on and off the court, which I believe is the best of LeBron. So for me, I'm concerned, but I want to see where KD goes from here because it's not a number, a figure, but there is a thing in life that people seek. It's called happiness. And it doesn't seem like KD, with all the things that he decided he wants to do, he's playing the game that he's always loved to play. Like, I'm wondering, where does this take him? Like, when is he going to ever be happy?
If not after this season, if not after this, the pinnacle of his career. Go ahead.
So let's talk about the news that now maybe his organization is actually a little bit concerned about him. My feeling is, let's see what happens the first day he steps on the court to start practicing with the team. Because we've seen in the NBA other guys who've had off-the-court things, distractions, odd life directions, Dennis Rodman, Allen Iverson, like they let them have their crazy offseason, whatever you want to call it, because they all came and they showed up and they performed. Do you think we're going to be talking about this if he comes in, he's the same exact Kevin Durant that we've seen last year? Or should we be so concerned that
No, he's going to be, right now, if I had to bet on someone to win MVP for the season, I'd bet on Durant. Like, we all know LeBron should be the guy that wins it, but LeBron doesn't win him anymore. I would bet on Durant. I think Durant's going to be awesome.
So what bothers you so much about
this? Because the concern is, Cris brought up LeBron. LeBron's first year ended with his lowest basketball point ever, and he responded positively. It followed up by his best basketball moment ever. Kevin Durant's first season ended with the new team with his highest basketball moment ever, and he responded negatively. That's concerning about Durant, the guy. And that's concerning about whether or not this type of whatever tortured soul he's dealing with, and not to overstate it, how sustainable that is. We have seen so many things this summer that were potential. That's curious. And I hate to harp on it, but the cupcake shoes followed up by the internet comment shoes, those were, what do we make of that? But then when it's followed up by, oh yeah, and I defend myself on the internet anonymously, then it's like, okay, it snaps into focus. You are the one second-guessing your decision. You are the one wondering if you, to quote yourself, effed up your life. You are the one that is still not at peace despite all the success. And that's why the court for him does not appear to be a sanctuary, because he's not going to be better than he was last year. And you're not going to get the feeling of the first championship again. And that wasn't enough to make him at peace.
The reason why you'd be concerned is because this is a special part of basketball history for Golden State. I mean, they have a rare opportunity. I mean, they could win 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6. Like, they could win a number of championships. And this organization, how it's run, the men who own it, there's not a whole bunch of visibility around them. There's not a whole bunch of noise coming out of Golden State. They got a great locker room. They got one guy that takes some maintenance. That's Draymond. Right. All right? And Coach Kerr, he handles that, and the organization has handled a number of Draymond issues. They did not think this was the Kevin Durant that they were getting. So also, let's not forget, in some of the things that are alarming, he also criticized Steph Curry.
Yeah, so nobody buys Under Armours.
Yeah, like, I mean, those things just aren't necessary. They're not an organization that wants that type of attention. And this is a special time in basketball for Golden State, and they should be taking advantage of it. That would be my concern.
And the other thing, sometimes with pro athletes, we do a weird thing where we treat them as adults when they're still kids and kids when they're adults. Like there's 21-year-old NBA players that have been in the league 3 years, and we're acting like they're not still 21 years old.
Right.
But Kevin Durant turns 29 next week. Now, 29 ain't 50, but at 29, I was married with 3 kids. You were married with 2 kids.
Yeah.
At 29, you're closer to being a fully formed adult than you are kid. And
in most professions, that wouldn't even be a question, except professional athletes.
Right. Yes. I mean, in most there is no.
Like in tennis, you're retired 8 years.
Sure,
already,
but there is as far as take the athletic part out of it. Like, I'm not talking about the length of your career. Just we have people that work with us that we rely on for this television show every day that are right around that age, and none of them would get away with and he didn't screw up at work. I get that. The excuse of he's just a kid. Like, no. Like, you're grown now. Yeah. Like, you're about to figure out how to apply for a mortgage and get your debt in order and your credit. Like, and so it is weird. And weird is the best way to put it, to see KD engaging in the type of stuff that you would expect to see from, like, the top recruit. Like a guy that's, going on, oh, yeah, I'm going to argue with you on the internet. Yeah, I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to take shots at people that I really don't want to take shots at. Like in those tweets where he took a shot, not just at his teammates, not just at Billy Donovan, but the Oklahoma City organization, an organization that coddled him and protected him, and maybe that's the other thing that we are not analyzing enough. Cece, when KD was in Oklahoma City, when they succeeded, it was Durant's credit, and when they failed, it was Russ's fault.
Yes.
He got criticized once, Jenna. I don't know if you remember this. Years ago in a playoff series, the Oklahoman local newspaper called him Mr. Unreliable. And they printed an apology the next day. That was his environment. Everyone hated LeBron, so everyone loved him. So maybe he just wasn't equipped for what he's had to deal with the last 11 months.
Well, when he went to Texas, he was only there briefly, and they definitely protected him because I've talked to one of the coaches that was there with him. We know what happened in OKC, and now Golden State, they didn't know what they were inheriting, and this is what they're getting.
Let's start with the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, Dak Prescott. Prescott is coming off arguably one of the worst games as a pro, throwing 2 picks with passer rating of 68. Among the criticism he received for this play, former Panthers and Steelers running back D'Angelo Williams had this to say.
Dak is a clock manager. Dak is not one of those guys that's going to come and win football games. When you go down 14 or 21 points, that's when Dak, he can't bring you back from that. And bringing you back from that, in my opinion, means winning the football game, not making it where it looks easy or even on paper, but they didn't lose by that many. Once Dak gets down and you can't run the football anymore, you're forcing Dak to make precision throws that Dak is not really comfortable throwing.
Both of you guys shaking your heads listening to that comment. Is Dak Prescott a clock manager, CC? Or just a clock manager?
Well, first of all, let's go to what a clock manager is, because I think I made 8 different Pro Bowls with 5 different quarterbacks, and a couple of those were clock managers or game managers. There's a couple of different ways you can call them. And why are they called that? Is because the team is not depending on their overall arm to be able to get them big plays. Either they're going to schematically have a scheme, a perfect play against the right defense, or they're going to run the ball in obvious passing situations, so they punt. They consider punting winning, and they have an outstanding defense. So they're just trying to manage the clock because they're going to get turnovers from their defense, and their coach has them kind of on a pitch count where we talk about Ben McAdoo. He has the big play sheet and everything. A game manager, that play sheet, it might be big, but he's only calling a certain portion of those plays. And Dak is everything but that. You know, so much respect to D'Angelo. I know he's retired. He's probably trying to cut his teeth in this business, but I've been doing this long enough to know. He just retired. He doesn't know that much about the rest of the NFL because as a player, you're so focused on that week and who you're playing, and definitely an offensive play. Unless it's your position, it's really hard for him to have some expertise on another position. A guy who's only played 1 year, and he hadn't been down by that but a couple times. And the one time in the playoff game against Green Bay, that was the situation. He was down.
And what did he do? He brought him back.
He brought the team back.
He outdueled Aaron Rodgers. I like D'Angelo Williams a lot. And you mentioned, and it's a good point, that you're not really studying. If you're an offensive player, the only other offensive players you're studying are your contemporaries, the guys you're competing with for stats or Pro Bowls. So he's probably not studying it that much. But the second most watched sporting event in America last year was the Packers-Cowboys playoff game. So the Super Bowl won that game too. And what happened? We heard D'Angelo say, he's not the type of guy where if you're down 14 points, he can bring you back. Okay. But evidently he is the type of guy where if you're down 15 points, he can bring you back. Because they were down 28-13 in that game.
Yes.
It was then 31-31 with 3 seconds remaining. And it took an amazing Mason Crosby field goal to keep that game out of overtime. Dak, in that game, outdueled Aaron Rodgers. Aaron was very good. Dak was outstanding. This is a weird thing we do, and we did it to Russell Wilson as well.
And others.
Which is, Russell's the one that comes to mind first to me, because for Russell, it was the defense.
Yes.
For Dak, it's the offensive line. We do a weird thing when guys don't have to carry teams. We assume they couldn't carry teams. Yeah. We never do that on the opposite. When the Andrew Luck-Russell Wilson thing was a real debate, right? People would say, well, we don't know if Russell could do what Andrew Luck does. But no one asks the other side. could Luck do what Russell is asked to do?
Absolutely.
Could the quarterbacks that are asked, hey, you got to go throw for 300 yards, make big plays, if they were on a better team, could they scale it back to not make the mistakes? Dak's job last year was not to throw for 350 yards, but it absolutely was, do not kill us with turnovers. And for some reason, we act like that part's an easy skill. Oh, it's easy to not, as a rookie quarterback, make awful throws, have strip sacks, throw into double coverage. So we know what Dak's great at, and in the few instances he's had a chance to show, but if you need me to go for 300, I can go for 300. He's done it more often than not.
Which leads you to wonder what D'Angelo's watching.
It's the
leads
narrative.
him to say, right, it's the narrative. It's exactly that. It's if he doesn't do it, can he not do it? But my question to you is, when quarterbacks come into the league, are they all assumed to be, game managers, clock managers, and then they work their way out of it? Or are there guys that come in that you say, that's a guy that's just going to really manage this team, and that kid over there, that kid's going to be able to throw 300, 350, 400 yards?
No, great question. A lot of it's based on what their arm talent is. That means how hard they can throw the football, all right, how quick their release is, and how often can they vary the speeds and the direction of the football. Because throwing the ball hard that's a skill that they want. But if all you have is a fastball, Jamarcus Russell and others who have a big, big arm, but they don't have the other skills that come with arm talent. So typically, if their arm is not a strong arm, they are put in a category of they're going to have to manage the game. Because in the NFL, if you can't, because the hash marks are in the middle of the field, if you can't throw the ball, it's a deep out almost every time. It's not like college, where you only have it half the time, it's moved all the way over to the sideline, and they don't throw the ball to the field as much. So if your arm is weak, you can be put in that category as a manager. But the big-time talented guys, and depending on who their surroundings are and the philosophy of the coach.
But at some point, narrative has to start to align with the data, or we've got to change the narrative. To me, the most telling stat, unless you're out there throwing a ton of interceptions, the most telling stat for quarterbacks is yards per attempt. Every time you drop back to throw the ball, on average, how many yards does your team gain? That incorporates incompletions, incorporates completion, incorporates all of it. Game managers, clock managers are the Alex Smith types, Alex Smith prior to this season, where it's been a revelation, where they have a high completion percentage. They're not throwing a lot of picks, but it's dink and dunk. It's little crossing rights to the tight end. It swings out of the backfield to the running back.
Is that a bad thing if they're winning?
Well, no, but to finish the point quickly, Dak's yards per attempt, 7.6. To give that some context, if that number doesn't mean anything to you, it is 6th amongst all active quarterbacks, behind Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Phillip Rivers, guys that nobody would call game managers. The data shows that he is more than that, and when he's been asked to be more than that, like in the comeback last year against Philly, like in the playoff game against Green Bay, like the Steelers game where he went and dueled Ben Roethlisberger 35-30, he's been more than that.
If I was Dak, I would take this as a compliment. Because, Nick, who's the most accomplished quarterback in pro football history?
I know Tom Brady.
Okay.
I know what you're going to say.
Do you realize maybe in the last 8 years, we removed that from him?
Right.
Oh, he's a game manager. They only win because it's New England. They only win because it's Belichick. And then they start winning because of Tom Brady.
It took the 2007 season. Up until the 2007 season, that's what we called him.
And the philosophy offensively was they're going to attack him with Tom Brady. You can come into a game and Tom Brady will throw the ball 45, 50 times. The next week he might only throw it 20 times. So Tom Brady, hey, Dak, if you grow up to be like Tom Brady,
It's all good.
like this has worked out for you.
Mark, good to have you here. So the Patriots face the Texans on Sunday. Tom Brady looked like the Tom Brady of old in Week 2 as opposed to just looking old in Week 1. See where I went there? Brady was asked about playing Houston this week and made it very clear it's definitely going to be a challenge.
A very tough, hard-nosed team. They have some incredible players, one of the best defense in the league. They're really good, really talented. They play hard. They're disciplined, play a lot of fundamentals. Our coaches do a great job preparing them. So, it's just it's a good test.
So, Cece, a lot of people would look at this matchup and say, why in the world would the Patriots not be looking past the Texans? Tell me why it is that the quarterback is out there talking about how tough this is going to be for him.
Well, one reason what makes Tom Brady special, and this is what makes most of the great players in the league, that they can focus on the task at hand. And there always have to be the appropriate amount of respect for any opposition in the NFL. I don't care which team I've ever played. They were all very, very talented. Now, were there times where I had a mismatch? Yes, but I never made myself think so. I always thought that I was going to be at a disadvantage, or someone who was guarding me was less talented, that they would help him out to give them an advantage. So I always played the trick on my mind. And the times that I didn't, and I took someone lightly, or they had a starter who was out and an injured player was in for him, those were not the best games that I've ever played. And players, they know this. Tom Brady, Belichick, they're robotic about it. And this is how you're able to sustain success in the NFL, taking it week by week by week, methodically, respecting the opposition. Not worrying about next week, not worrying about week number 5. No, because it really does not matter. And anytime you don't look across the field and be like, Jadeveon Clowney, don't respect him. Whoa, Defensive Player of the Year. A couple times, J.J. Watt, not going to respect him. All right, you're going to have a bad day. And people, no one's got this game figured out. You can get humiliated. Look at Dallas, what happened to them. Look what Brady, what happened to them week number 1. Drew Brees, what happened to him? Aaron Rodgers, they got smashed in Atlanta. This is what happens in the National Football League. And if you take your eyes off the opposition, and let alone it being a great defense, not a bad defense, a great defense. New England said they were worried about New Orleans defense.
That was a lie. That one was a lie.
That's why they put 400 on them, because they were worried about them.
Yeah.
And the more you can trick yourself to respect and give that respect that they're getting ready to get their best game, which New England, everyone gives them their best game. So I understand Tom Brady, and that's part of the secret sauce that makes him special.
There's two ways that teams try to defend Tom Brady. They draft. The Houston Texans will look at their defense, and they'll draft, and they'll pick players accordingly to try to say, hey, who are the best guys? Who are we going to face in the playoffs? Who are the guys that we have to be concerned with?
Patriots keep knocking them out in the playoffs.
Right, and it's Tom Brady, and so two ways. You've got to, in your back end, you got to have guys that can play man coverage, who can bust up them man routes, who can get up in press, knock guys off their routes, disrupt the timing of your passing game, and you've got to have guys up front. Whitney Merciless, he can flat out play.
Yes.
Jadeveon Clowney, he can rush the passer. J.J. Watt, we'll see what he comes back to with the back injuries. But J.J. Watt, for a time, was the best player I have ever watched from moving around. Now, I played against Reggie White. We both did. You played with Reggie White. Reggie White was phenomenal, one of the best I've ever seen. And he moved up and down the line of scrimmage. There has never been a player that was a better pass rusher at multiple positions than J.J. Watt in the history of this game. A guy that could line up over your right tackle, over your right guard, over your left guard, over your left tackle, and dispense justice against every one of those guys. And I've never, ever seen his equal when healthy doing that.
And you keep mentioning when healthy.
So, and if I'm Tom Brady and I'm doing this, I'm looking over at 99 going, who's got him? Like, how are we going to do that? So I'm 100% with, when you prepare as an offensive player for a defense, I don't care that their offensive line hasn't blocked their way out of a wet paper sack yet. I don't care that. I'm looking at the guys that I have to contend with, and those guys are legitimate, and they have that closeness to Brady from where they line up that can really put a damper on his day. So, yes, of course he thinks they're great.
Well, and I think part of it is what Cris is saying, which is you always want to respect your opponent, even if there's a part of your brain that's like, the Saints defense stinks. You trick yourself into believing it. But the Texans, the unit that's easy to respect is the defense.
Sure.
It's the unit that's carried this team the last 4 years.
Yes.
It's the unit that has multiple Pro Bowlers on it. It's the unit where they have Whitney Merciless, Clowney, Watt, Kareem Jackson, Kevin Johnson, Brian Cushing, well, he's out now, but they have 7 first-round picks in their defense. Like they have spent a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of talent there. So that makes sense. The flip side is the Texans offense, which is what Brady's not worried about, is going to present this team with no trouble. And everyone in New England knows that. Like they might not say it publicly. Rookie quarterbacks coming into New England since Bill Belichick's been there, they are 0-8 with a passer rating of 51. Yeah. Little context on that. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I do believe that Brady was 105-0 in the fourth quarter with the lead until he met the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's true. There you go.
So those things,
stat right back.
Occasionally, you got a problem with my stat. No, you got a problem with my stats.
Yes.
And it worked.
Yes.
You're 100% right that week one was the big, at least in that instance, a lot of these 105-0, 53-1, a lot of those trends broke. The point that I'm trying to make about Deshaun Watson and the Texans is the Texans defense is going to have to be everything Brady says it can be and more in order to keep them in this game.
Okay, I know how they operate in New England. And over the last couple of weeks, you know what they'll have? They'll have a low-light defensive tape. And Bill Belichick will come in there and say, this right here, from week one, that's good enough to get you beat. We couldn't defend the run. This from week two, that's good enough to get you beat. And they'll flash up what we did poorly, and then all of a sudden they'll flash up a play that Watson did exceptionally well. And they'll say, this is good enough to get you beat. This is the kind of team, this is the kind of, you take these guys lightly. I just know how they're coached over there.
One thing they don't do in pro football, they put the game plan in. They don't tell Tom Brady who's quarterback in the other team. But what they do tell him is, and that offensive line, when they go into their meeting, we're going to double team 99 every play. So they have to change every protection because they haven't played against one guy they had to double team. So every play, they're going to double team J.J. Watt. So now it's a numbers count, all right? We got two guys going to block him, and you got the quarterback. So now offensively, you only got 8 guys, all right? They send 5 rushers. You only got 4 other blockers, all right? It's a numbers game, so Tom Brady should be concerned, all right? This is not the normal New England press conference where they just give you the normal coach speak or the coach answers. Going against this front, going against J.J. Watt, they have some serious problems. And anytime you have a problem protecting Tom Brady, it's paramount to the team. So watch what they do in this game. They won't be as aggressive, all right, because they also know that there's a rookie quarterback. So the Texans aren't going to score 28 points.
I would go back to the Denver game last year. They go into Denver, and this is to your point. This will back you up some. They went into Denver knowing that the Denver Broncos offense was anemic, okay, flat out anemic. Now, their defense was better last year in New England, but they knew it was anemic. They went in with a watered-down game plan. Brady completed less than 50% of his passes. It was 3-step drops. They're like, we are not going to get you hit like we got you hit in the AFC Championship game the previous year where you got hit 24 times and 4 sacks. He said, we're not going to let that happen to you. It was football 101 game plan. We're going to run it. You're going to throw it. It's all 3-step, 5-step, get the ball out of your hands. And they won a game, I think, 16-3.
16-3 is exactly what it was.
Well, let's just keep in mind, the reason people say stuff like this, are they going to overlook the Texans, that they don't realize, which you brought up, made a good point, is, and you did too, the quarterback's not looking at their offense. Tom Brady's only sitting down looking at their defense. And this defense presents a whole host of problems that Tom Brady's not going to overlook.
And they remember the playoff game against the Texans in Gillette last year, where it's 17-13.
If they had any quarterbacking at all, the Texans would have won that game. Their defense shut down the offense.
It was 17-13 at the half, and the Patriots had a punt return touchdown or a kick return touchdown in it. Texans played them real close, and Osweiler gave the game.
Last point. This is the only time Tom Brady has faced this front seven with a healthy J.J. Watt.
And healthy Clowney, because he wasn't 2 years ago.
So I would be concerned.
The Seahawks haven't really taken flight this season, scoring only 1 touchdown the first 2 games. Russell Wilson is 25th in passer rating behind studs like Mike Glennon and Josh McCown, she said sarcastically. Richard Sherman was asked about the struggling offense. Take a listen.
Well, honestly, they weren't really struggling. I mean, they were doing everything they needed to do in terms of time of possession and controlling the clock and things like that. You know, we got a lot of highly paid guys on our side of the ball. A lot of guys who play the game at a high level, and there's a certain standard that is expected, and we expect it from ourselves. So we expect that regardless of what happens on the other side of the ball. So at the end of the day, it's really on us.
So, guys, CC specifically, we've seen defenses carry struggling offenses. We've seen the Ravens do it. We've seen the Broncos do it. Is the Seattle defense doing that this year? Are they carrying this offense?
Absolutely, and they have for a long time. But, you know, you have to analyze what Richard said. He talks about the money, okay, because everyone has the same salary cap. So the pie is this big. Now, they have decided that 70% of the pie, they're going to spend it on the defense. Now, all these guys have stuck together. You know, Bennett, KD Wright, KJ Wright, Sherman, Earl Thomas, all of them have supported each other in potential contract disputes. Like, say this offseason, instead of going out and getting another offensive lineman or two, they gave Cam Chancellor an extension. Now, is that really going to help Russell Wilson, which they gave over $100 million? So they haven't done anything to protect that side of the ball.
And they traded a wide receiver for Sheldon Richardson.
Sheldon Richardson.
I mean,
yes.
Why?
They're going to play because they've drafted a lot of these guys, and for them to win the Super Bowl, their biggest problem is they messed up. They tricked off one Super Bowl. If they were two-time Super Bowl champ, we wouldn't even care. But for Richard, this is a constant theme, and it's constant tension, because I was on Philadelphia with Reggie White and that defense. That the only thing preventing them from winning the Super Bowl there was us, the offense. And there was some bad exchanges with them coming off the field with another turnover and telling us, hey, won't you guys finally do something with this? So eventually it gets to you. One of the best teams to ever not win the Super Bowl, the 98 Vikings, NFL scoring record. Our defense was about 20th, 21st. There was plenty of bad exchanges after we scored 3 touchdowns. Is that enough for you? There was 2 games that season, Stink. We didn't score 30 points. You know what our record was, Stink? 15-1 in the regular season. We beat, in the divisional game, we beat Arizona, and then we lost to Atlanta. Because 2 games, the only 2 games we didn't score 30 points were the only 2 games we lost. You think it's not real tension? Yes, it is real tension. But Richard knows when they get blamed, it's going to be on the defense because that's where they're spending their money.
It's gotten to the point in Seattle, I think patronizing is the right word. Like my granddaughter sometimes will say, oh, it's adorable. And I think Richard Sherman looks at the offense and goes, it's adorable. Look at those guys. They try hard. So cute, right? They're not good. They're not good. They can't score.
No, it's not their fault.
Right. That's not their fault. They don't have any players. It's adorable. Look at them. Oh. And we're going to go out here and we're going to, we're going to have to choke people out. Right. And that's where they are right now. And I think it's the only way you can look at it because it's not their fault. It's not like they're not giving effort. They spend no money. I called a game last year. Called a game in Seattle, the 49ers versus the Seahawks. They had 3 guys starting that 2 of them shouldn't have been in the league up front, and 1 of them should have been a backup that you are on penitent knee praying never has to get in the game. Please, Lord, don't let this guy go in. And those 3 guys are starting. Like, I look at that and say, good luck. We're all counting on you. Well, and that's the way they're constructed. And they don't spend money there.
And you wonder if at this point it's too skewed. Like, to speak to Chris's point.
No, it is.
Well, and just to the actual numbers, Seattle, percent of the cap, money spent on defense, 1st in the NFL. Seattle, money spent on offense, 30th in the NFL. And keep in mind, the 2 teams beneath them aren't paying a quarterback $18 million. That's where, to me, it's skewed. We talked about the Texans earlier. If the Texans were like, listen, we're not, no matter what money we spend, we don't have a quarterback, we're not going to be able to score points, so let's just go all defense, I would get it. But once you have the quarterback,
right,
to have his second best player be with respect Doug Baldwin and his third best player be what's left of Jimmy Graham, and his best running back is Chris Carson? Like, that's where it gets skewed because you have the quarterback. You didn't need Sheldon Richardson. It was cool. When it happened, I was like, man, how's anyone going to move the ball on these guys?
Right.
You don't need – they might have the two best safeties in football. Like,
yes.
both of them.
Right.
And that's awesome when they were.
But is this the plan? Is there a plan? Let's just do it. Let's just make sure this defense is so good. Other
Jenna,
teams have won on defense.
Their plan was this. Their plan was it worked. It was great when these guys were on their rookie contracts.
Yes.
The plan was we have kicked ass. Pardon me. We have killed it in the draft. We got Richard Sherman in the 5th round. We got guys that are on rookie contracts that are cheap. And by the way, we got our quarterback who's on a rookie contract who's cheap. We can have talent everywhere. But then they wanted to keep those guys. So to keep them, now that pie is getting smaller and smaller.
They have a great offensive line coach in Tom Cable, and they put it on Tommy Cable, and they say, Tommy, you listen, we're not going to give you a lot of talent. We're not going to give you any talent. You're just going to have to coach them up. They are like from a management standpoint, they're like a toddler that's in one of those jumpy ball toy pins.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And they want to hold every ball. And you're only so big, you only have so many, and you're holding like 7 balls, and you're trying to get that 8th one. And so you're trying to balance, and you reach down, and you pick one up, and then one falls out, and you're like, oh, wait, let me try to get, like that's their defensive players. They're just like, oh, they're collecting balls right now. Like, oh, there's a red one, there's a yellow one, there's a blue one, there's a green one. Oh, all the balls, I cannot wait. That's what they're doing. Like, meanwhile, offensively, they're not putting any balls in the ball.
Their big move this offseason was they signed Eddie Lacy. Right. But the thing about it was, Eddie Lacy, even though he looks like an offensive lineman, he's supposed to be a running back.
This will make you so happy. This year, Seattle and last year, dead last in the NFL in spending on the offensive line. The year they won the Super Bowl, most in the NFL in spending on the offensive line.
2-time Super Bowl champ and Giants radio analyst Carl Banks is here with us for more. Hey, Carl, how are you?
Good.
So we are going to get ready to discuss probably the game of the. Did you hit me under the table on purpose? You just really took my kneecap out.
Stuck.
You You just took my kneecap and pushed it to the other side. To say the Giants are off to a disappointing start would be an understatement, and things aren't about to get any easier. Odell Beckham Jr. is still limited in practice, and now rookie tight end Evan Ingram is in the concussion protocol. And now they get the Eagles in Philadelphia. Carl, not looking great. But what do you think how do you think the Giants will show up on Sunday?
Well, they've got to show up for sure. They got to get off that bus and they got to take the field. The key for the Giants right now is what Coach Parcells used to call circle the wagons. It's got to be complementary football. You know what you're not. You know where your strengths lie. You've got to be able to complement each other. Now, that said, the coach said that he's open to making adjustments. That means his offense has got to do some different things to protect the quarterback. Yes. That's the most valuable asset you have. But there's no rule that says if your offense goes 3 and out, that your defense can't do the same. They're not playing complementary football right now, in my opinion. And people have, in a sense, absolved the defense because the offense has been so bad. Well, they are supposed to be, and I think they are, this highly talented, really, really good defense, but they can't get off the field. So their time of possession, the opposing offense's time of possession is way up, and it limits the opportunities for the offense to get on track, the Giants. So I'm saying, and I'm sure that's what's going on in that building, defense, you got to step it up. You're the strength of our team. You better do more to get this offense back on the field. Right. And they're not. They can't get 3 and outs. They go 1 or 2 series where teams don't even see don't see a third down. First down, 6 yards. Second down, 5 yards. They miss tackles. So they've got to do their part. I think they will. It's got to be complementary football. And I was talking to Cris. I think Coach McAdoo is a football guy first. He understands this game. He has a system that's a West Coast offense. It's not, right now, the quarterback in this offensive line is not allowing them to execute the way that they want. We're going to find out how flexible he is in, number one, play calling input, or if he's just giving it up and letting someone else do it. but they know what's not
But he hasn't
working.
decided yet that, has he?
I don't know. I haven't talked to them, and they don't let me in those meetings. So,
Okay.
but I do know that he's a football guy, and he's a smart guy. So I'm pretty confident he'll do what it takes to at least protect this quarterback.
Sure.
For football fans out there, with West Coast offense, the best way to look at it is they're only going to use 5 offensive linemen, all right, to block how many other guys they have coming. But the Giants, in those one-on-one matchups, they don't fare well. So do I stay within the system that I know, which is West Coast, which is also 3 receivers or multiple formations, but a lot of times 3 receivers, all right? So do I get away from that? Do I go more to 2 tight ends? Do I go to more to the screen game to be able to get some camouflage to take the pressure off the offensive line? So just to explain his philosophy and what he likes to do, and Carl saying, do I know? Carl saying, I haven't seen it yet. So I haven't seen him change his system. Now, he did question now, I might have to look at changes. Now, him based on being in a number of different systems, that's what's important to Philadelphia. They need an offensive identity. So when they come out against Philadelphia, what formations are they in? Are they dominating a 2 tight end set? Are they trying to do the 3 receiver set because they have Sterling, they have Shepard, the young guy, they have Odell. How healthy is he? And Brandon Marshall. Like, what are they going to do with him? So those are the things immediately in this weekend's game that we must see.
And here's the thing about it. The Philadelphia Eagles, they have some issues on the back end.
Yes.
Right? So how do you get to them? It's like having a neighbor, right, who has a lot of jewelry and a pot of gold, and she walks out of her house and she leaves it right on the living room table. Come and get it. It's yours. You got to get by my Dobermans. That's what the Giants have got to do. They've got to figure out how to protect the quarterback because Philadelphia, they've got Rottweilers and Dobermans.
Brandon Graham, Fletcher
If you want that pot of gold, you got to get
they have a nice
those
security
guys.
system.
No, they're the
Right.
front of their team, the D-line. I mean, I'm thinking Seattle is on the list. There's a few other teams you would put up there, but Philadelphia is in the discussion for the best defensive line in football.
And they create chaos.
They probably have, of every team in the league, the best combination of defensive and offensive line.
Sure.
That's where their team is built.
Sure.
They have one of the 5 best offensive lines in the league and one of the 5 best defensive lines in the league, which is good for Philly because the rest of the team is not that impressive.
Okay.
This is going to be, you mentioned the Giants' defense not looking like it did last year thus far. This is going to be far and away the worst quarterback they've faced. Giants have gone against Dak Prescott. He's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league. Matt Stafford. CC thinks he's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league.
I didn't say 10 best.
Okay, sorry.
But he's worth the contract that he.
Okay,
Stop hating on him about his money.
Okay, I'm not hating on him about his money, but that's not the point. Carson Wentz is not that guy. I came into this year.
I wouldn't discount Carson Wentz.
Thank you.
Don't discount that young man.
Thank you.
Here is the.
Well, let me just say, he's one of the best young quarterbacks in this league right now.
I think we're going to find out in a couple years that that's not accurate. I think that this is, and we'll see what happens. I watched Carson Wentz in week 1, and I was really impressed. Watched it with you, Chris.
Yes.
At the plays he made when he was in trouble. The plays he 3 separate times, it looked like a blitzer had him dead to rights. He was able to elude that blitzer, make passes down the field. One of them went for a touchdown. What was not impressive in that game and what was highly unimpressive in week 2 were the times he wasn't in trouble and he missed wide open guys. He missed his target 3 times against the Chiefs on screen passes. Not because he threw it into the ground, but because a screen pass, which it should be one of the easiest passes in the game, he was just errant. He was erratic.
Sure.
So you see some of the highlight plays from Carson Wentz, but right now the consistency is not there. I think the Giants team must be able to take advantage of that.
Well, they may be able to, but let's talk about Carson Wentz as his career, even as his season goes. It's a 4-week. I give some of these players 4-week grace periods. He should be better after week 4. This is still training camp.
And then all his skilled players are new.
Right.
I think Carson Wentz is one of the great young talents in the league.
I agree.
Now, and it's not based on everything I've seen, all right? He's a better athlete, all right? He's got a big-time arm, and I believe that he'll be coached up the right way. Last year, I mean, the wide receivers led the NFL in drops, all right? So he didn't get a lot of help. So for me, this is a huge game for the Giants. It's a huge game for their defense because they need to create the turnover edge because that offense cannot beat the Eagles with them having no turnovers. If they don't get that offense, the ball on a short field, or get them 2 or 3 turnovers, the Giants are going to start the season 0-3.
The flip side to starting the season 0-3, I apologize, Jenna, is they win this game, they're 1-2. Washington's playing Oakland. Oakland's a road favorite. They're staring at 1-2. Dallas is on the road in Arizona. I expect Dallas to win that game. The Giants with a win, they could come in Tuesday morning after the Cowboys game Monday night and be tied for first in their division after the 0-2 start. Go ahead, Jenna.
Carl, looking at Eli Manning on the other side, Eli can't afford to have another game like he had last week. He needs a little more time. He certainly needs more protection. And we talked about this all week, that he had such little protection on the side, on that Eric Flowers side, that he wasn't. Changes weren't being made during the game to help him and give him a shot. So now you say, well, if you add a somewhat healthier Odell Beckham, you want to give this guy a chance to get the ball to Odell Beckham. What kind of changes now do you see McAdoo making to both give Eli a chance to be successful, and then how much do you play Odell Beckham when you know you really do need him?
Well, I think each week he should get better if he didn't have a setback, okay? But it comes down to protection and how you schematically put a plan together, because if you've got to hold guys in and still just send 3 guys out, now you're going 3 on 7. If they rush 4, and they can cover your 3 guys. So you've got to be able to do some different things formation-wise, and it may not be your 11 personnel anymore. It may be 2 tight end sets. They've got Evan Ingram, he's a willing participant as a blocker. Rhett Ellison is a blocker. You can get some guys, you can start to do some different things, and if they can run the football. Why didn't he do that last week, or try to? Well, he tried. They didn't have a lot of possessions, to be honest with you. And once you get behind, they want to try to chase points, and they just didn't have the opportunity. They couldn't run it, number one. They couldn't pass it. They couldn't protect the passer. So it was broken. Let's just call it for what it is.
I look for the Giants to play more 2 tight ends. I look for them to play more 2 backs, but also look for them to play 2 wide receiver sets. Also, put both wide receivers on one side. Go maximum protection, all right? Give Eli the time, all right? Even if you have to go play action. Play action is the best pass protection available. It makes it simpler for Eli, and people's like, well, at this point of his career, do you need to make it simpler? No, you need to make it simpler for the offensive line and give them some help, because Eli can't do his job unless they have a great outing. And this is the best defensive line that poor offensive line has faced.
Correct. They lead the NFC. The Eagles do with 8 sacks. The defensive line would lead the NFC in sacks by itself with 7 of them. And you're going up against an offensive line that just got dominated. But a Lions D-line that has one great player in Ziggy Ansah, but the rest of the guys are not guys you consider
they're complementary players. Yes.
However, let me add one thing before we move on. I said that I try to do this on Thursdays. Give America, as we did last week, a winner. If you can get yourself to Vegas, if you're watching from Vegas, your bet of the week last week was the Buffalo Bills +8. That's a cover. That's a winner. This week, the New York Giants getting 6.5 in Philadelphia. There is your Knicks pick for the week. It's a new segment I just created myself.
We need to get
There's no animation, no anything. There it is. There it is. I think the Giants are going to win the game, but don't bet them to win the game. Just take the 6 points. I think Giants win the game. Get back.
Carl, I'll be at the game.
All right, I'll see you.
Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate that. I will be betting the game.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern on FS1. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.